right, hey guys, what's going on? This is Caden Cleveland here with the Oklahoma Senate, and you're joining us for another episode of OK Senate on Deck. Of course, just like every week, we are joined with our President Pro Tem, Senator Greg Treat. Senator, thank you so much for just taking the time out of your crazy busy schedule, just sitting and walking us through exactly what's going on here in the Senate.
Yeah, we're in May. It's busy.
Absolutely.
Very busy.
You talk about, I love the line you use, it's May and it's either news of tornadoes or budget negotiations, right?
Yeah, rumors of sine die and budget negotiations and tornadoes.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly right. More so on the side of budget negotiations and sine die when you're here at the Capitol, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Hook echoes. I hear about that all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, quick little update for everybody. As we mentioned before, we're going to be talking about really just more of an update today. It's beginning of May, and a lot of things going on here at the Capitol. We mentioned budget negotiations are really getting after it lately. Almost, I think Senator Thompson mentioned about 90% done with the budget negotiations. Still a few hurdles to clear.
There's some big pieces that need to be decided, but a lot of things are in place.
Right on, yeah. So just jumping on the budget topic, I guess, would you mind just quickly explaining to us what the latest updates are there and what the next few weeks will look like?
Yeah, we're blessed this year to be in a better financial position through a lot of hard decisions we made over the last couple of years, and through innovative companies and people investing their hard-earned money and making money. I mean, the economy's doing well.
Yeah.
It's not all the government. The government, we did make some changes to tax law and to spending that have helped. But the vast majority, is an economy growing. People risking their own money and doing well. And so we had another $575 million over what we had last year to be able to spend. But we don't want to be, we want to be responsible with it. It's probably a better way to put it.
Right.
And we're working very diligently to try to make sure we have a significant amount of savings in our rainy day fund. We will be approaching the cap after the deposit after this fiscal year.
Right.
So, and we want to make sure that we prioritize spending areas. Education's a huge area that we're trying to prioritize, have continued to prioritize and try to put more money in there. We put about $460 million additional dollars last year to bring up just the appropriated side of the budget to $2.9 billion. And so we're still working on that. Criminal justice reform is still an extremely important component of how we fund things, and making sure we don't neglect the progress we've made on roads and bridges. When Republicans first took over, there had been about a 30-year flat line on roads and bridges funding, and we've got to make sure we keep that commitment. Not only is it an economic development, it's a public safety issue.
Absolutely.
When you don't have safe roads, but if we want rural Oklahoma to succeed, if we want Oklahoma City and Tulsa and Lawton to succeed, and you've got to have good infrastructure. You're not going to get commerce to market, and you're not going to get new people to want to open up shop here.
Absolutely. So jumping back real quick on something you mentioned just briefly there was the rainy day fund. Now that's been something that Governor Stitt has been really pushing, really over the last several months, has been putting money towards our state savings account. Is that looking like something that we're going to be able to do this year?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's almost on, I don't want to say autopilot, but there's going to be another huge deposit to put us close to the cap, which is south of $900 million. So roughly $1 billion will be in savings because of other areas where we're putting some savings. We've got some innovative ways of trying to create some cushion on our healthcare dollars and things like that. So we're very much committed to making sure we're good stewards with the dollars. And part of that is making sure you sock away some money, because it's not always going to be on the uptick. And we've got to make sure that we're prepared when the economy is not as strong.
So on the education topic, then kind of moving forward to the next one, you mentioned there's still some work being, done there within the budget negotiations within the education budget.
Yeah, there is. We've talked about it over a few weeks here that the Senate really has wanted to prioritize classroom funding and trying to get those class sizes down and trying to give maximum flexibility to local school districts to make the best decision they can with those dollars. And so there's that talk, and then there's talk about teacher pay. So we've got to balance those desires. The Senate has been very focused trying to get more money into the funding formula and into the classroom.
So walk me through the difference between these two. From what I understand, the House is very focused on putting that money, roughly $70 million or so, directly to teacher pay increases, whereas the Senate takes the standpoint of putting that money towards the funding formula. So for somebody that doesn't exactly know what the funding formula does or what that means, what exactly does that mean when you put money towards the funding formula rather than directly to teachers' pay?
So it's a very complicated subject that I can't get into all the details in this short time on the funding formula, but basically it's the way that we allocate resources around the state. Some schools are off the funding formula, so their local tax base is strong enough. There may be a wind project, or oil and gas project, a power plant, something like that, that they've got enough dollars that you don't need the funding formula to equalize funding in that school district. So a number of schools are off the formula. Those that are on the formula are on the formula in various degrees. For instance, I represent Deer Creek Schools, and of the traditional schools, it gets the lowest amount of funding formula dollars because of the local property tax base is so strong, which creates some heartache on its own that we could go into greater detail
for sure,
in the
absolutely.
future. But as far as putting money into the funding formula dollars are extremely flexible for local school districts.
Okay.
So in order to retain and recruit teachers, they need to give a significant pay raise in addition to the $6,100 pay raise we did last year.
Right.
They could do that. They wouldn't be limited to $1,200. They wouldn't be limited to anything other than the budget they have. Or let's say that they wanted to reduce class size. Let's say they have 26 kids in a first grade class and they want to average 19 or 20.
Right.
You could hire an additional teacher without raising the pay scale to make sure that you have a better student-teacher ratio. You could buy supplies. You could buy paper. You could use those dollars very flexibly.
So that's an interesting thing you bring up there, that putting money into the funding formula does not negate teachers from getting a raise necessarily. It just puts that money more towards the almost like local control over that money. Is that correct?
That's a great way to put it. Yes, and that's absolutely true.
Gotcha. So like you mentioned, if they wanted to hire a new teacher, if they wanted to give pay raises to attract more teachers or something like that, they're more than willing to do that, or more than able to do that.
Yeah, it's a local elected school board that would make that decision.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that makes great sense. Makes sense why that money would,
we're all interested in teacher pay and making sure that we're in a strong position. That's the reason we gave an average of $6,100 teacher pay raise last year. The big rallying cry that we heard during the teacher walkout was, okay, you've taken, I don't want to misstate it. They didn't say you've taken care of it, that you're done. But the focus they were advocating for was, let's get some more money into the classroom.
Right.
And we've heard that on the doorstep in our re-elections, and we've heard that from our constituents time and again.
Yep.
Teacher pay is important, but so is making sure that we have reduced class sizes through the funding formula and or resources in those classrooms for those quality teachers to be able to use those resources to educate our children.
Right. And you mentioned the average pay increase of $6,100 that was given last year during you remember everything with the teacher walkout and everything. It was actually even prior to the teacher walkout. But interesting fact, before then we were roughly 48th or 49th in the country with average teacher pay. After that pay increase, jumped up close to 15 slots.
Yeah,
33rd. Yeah,
34th,
34th.
I think 33rd. Yeah, 34th is what I read. But yeah, it's a significant improvement.
Right.
And it shows that we're moving. I mean, to move 15 slots in 1 year is a huge accomplishment.
It's a huge deal, absolutely.
It doesn't say we're done, but it says we're on the right path.
Absolutely. And then you take into consideration different things like cost of living and stuff like that, and we move up even further.
Yeah, I think 11th is what I saw.
That's amazing.
But you can never rest on your laurels because other states are moving as well.
Absolutely.
And we got to make sure we keep pace. And make sure that we have our focus in the right area. Per pupil funding is a little complicated how you compare states, but we've got to keep our foot on the pedal there.
Love that. Absolutely. Well, Pro Tem, some other things that happened this week in the Senate, or I guess this episode will come out next Monday, but that happened this past week was FFA choir came and sang.
Yeah, it's
for
always
the
a
Senate.
highlight of the session.
Absolutely.
That was awesome. Beautiful voices, kids who are really dedicated, awesome future. I always get inspired when I hear him sing. It was great.
We have one of our senators, Chris Kidd, who's very, very much involved in make sure the FFA is recognized and always having them involved. So
yeah, Chris does a good job of recognizing and being involved. Senator Kidd is, I think, went through the FFA himself and is very committed. We've got a number of senators that went through it and it was life changing for them. And Senator Kidd, you could tell that he was emotionally connected to those kids into that show, the choir and chorus. I mean, and he gave a very good introduction.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was not able to go to the banquet, but I hear that he did an even better job there. So
let's go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess kind of moving forward over the next few weeks, we'll have more updates for everybody because so much is still developing, I think, specifically within the budgeting process. But outside the budgeting process, bills are still being passed off the Senate and House floor, so policy issues are still being worked on as well.
Yeah, and you'll hear a lot more about conference committees now. So when the House and Senate passed different versions of the same bill, you have to go to a conference committee. So the House and Senate appoint people. The bill, they work out their differences.
Right.
So you're going to start to hear a lot about conference committee reports and all of that. It's
Gotcha.
Just the season we're in.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Pro Tim, anything else to add? We're about out of time here.
I want to make sure I mentioned, I think I foreshadowed it, but again, we're taping this early, but Memorial Marathon previous weekend was a great way to honor those 168 victims. Mm-hmm. Really awesome to see the statewide support. Governor Stitt, challenged us at a State of the State, so the House and Senate participated. The Senate, I was really proud, was a bipartisan group of state senators that really represented the Senate well. And I noticed that your wife ran for the governor, but I'm not keeping track.
She did run for the governor, and she recorded an 8.5-minute mile, so I got to brag on her right now. She did a really good job. But, she ran against the Senate, but, of course, you would run faster, right?
In my mind.
Yeah,
yes, in my mind. No, I heard she was like a gazelle is what somebody said, and so we are going to be recruiting talent next year. No,
I love that.
No,
yeah.
I like that it was senators. I like that there were Republicans and Democrats that participated. Right. It was just we didn't win the whole thing, so I'm very disappointed in the team. But other than that,
next year, wait till next year, right?
No, it was great. I mean, to see the city, state, people from all around the country, and in some instances the world coming out and honoring those victims.
That's cool.
That was a really beautiful thing to see. I got to take my kids. We volunteered with our church, and it was. I was glad my kids. They were not glad that I woke them up at 4:45, but I think they were glad at the end that they got to witness.
Absolutely, that's in a hindsight deal, right? Yeah, at the moment when you're waking up, not too much fun, but then in hindsight, it's a pretty good deal.
Oh, absolutely. It was really cool. My wife and kids got to participate, but it was. I was glad Governor Stitt challenged us, our team. They performed extremely well.
Love it, absolutely. Well, Pro Tim, thank you so much for just walking us through, giving us an update there. A lot of different topics, different things going on here at the Capitol right now. So, and thank you guys for joining us, listening every week. And if you do have any questions, feel free to email us. We have a direct email here to the podcast. It's ondeck@oksenate.gov. In some other big news, our podcast is now available on iTunes.
Yes, I'm extremely excited about that.
Absolutely. Really cool deal. Just being able to reach out to even more people. Pretty much the only podcast available, just giving people updates directly here from the Capitol. So a really cool deal. But all you have to do is just get onto iTunes and search Oklahoma Senate Republicans, and then that's our On Deck podcast is the first one to pop up. So, Pro Tim, anything else?
No, but I'm going to do that now as you continue to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm challenging him. He is actually subscribing to the podcast while we're on the podcast. So,
yes,
absolutely love that.
Blew some people's minds.
Well, hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll give you more updates here as the budget negotiations and legislation flies off the floor. So, I guess other than that, we will see you next week. Pro Tim?
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.